president of the African Development Bank, for me, is not a job, it is a mission. Nothing can be greater than to have been given the responsibility, the resources, the mandate, the support, and the platform to help transform Africa, the continent of my own birth. Thanks to you, African heads of state and government, for your incredible support. I made it the hallmark of my presidency with my staff to carefully listen to and for us to understand the needs of your countries and to do all possible within the available resources of the bank to support your economic and development ambitions. Thank you to the people of Africa who daily are our focus. As I say to my staff, the most important part of the African Development Bank is the development part. We must fast-track Africa's development. I am proud that over the past 10 years, collectively, working together, the African Development Bank has been an accelerator of Africa's development. The high fives of the bank to light up and power Africa, to feed Africa, to industrialize Africa, integrate Africa, and improve the quality of life of the people of Africa have been transformational for Africa. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, in the past decade, the work of the African Development Bank has impacted the lives of 565 million people. This includes 28 million people with access to electricity, 104 million people with food security, 121 million people with access to improved transport, 128 million people with access to improved health services, 67 million people with improved access to information and communications technology, 63 million people with access to drinking water, and 34 million people with access to sanitation. The bank accelerated regional integration with massive support for infrastructure to support the African Continental Free Trade Area. Over the past 10-year period, under my presidency of the African Development Bank, we would have provided, Your Excellencies, a total of $102 billion in support of Africa. This represents 46% of all the financing of the bank since its establishment in 1964. The African Development Bank financed over $55 billion in support of infrastructure, from roads to rails to airports to seaports to digital and communications, health, water, and sanitation. Excellent.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and right here in our host country, financing of most of the major urban infrastructure visible in Abidjan, according to the vision of the President, was strongly supported by the African Development Bank Group. Your Excellency, President Alassane Ouattara, I am delighted to announce that under my presidency and with the tireless work of our bank, the financial support of the African Development Bank to Côte d'Ivoire increased by 500% in 10 years. To give you a ballpark, between 1964 through 2014, cumulative approvals for Côte d'Ivoire totaled 2.3 billion euros. But since 2015, the bank has committed, within a mere 10 years, $3.6 billion, additional euros actually, which is actually 1.6 times higher than all approvals over the last 50 years. My dear friend, President Alassane Ouattara is a globally famed economist. And you know, if I do not do that, he's going to perform all the economic analysis of the work I would have done. And this also includes the famed Henri Conan Bédier Bridge, and it also includes, Mr. President, your project, the Abidjan Urban Transport Project, and the iconic bridge, which is 1,400 meters long, linking Yopougon to Adjamé, as well as 88 kilometers of urban highway and 89 refurbished junctions. This also includes all the beautiful roads, Mr. President, leading to the new Alassane Ouattara Stadium, where Côte d'Ivoire won. The 2023 AFCON, I was there, right there at the stadium with the president, and on that day,
bleu et avec lunettes.
I didn't wear the Ivorian colors. I was in blue. Just in case a goal was scored, I would focus on my glasses, and the president was very kind to invite me as he handed the cup. Your Excellency, Mr. Alassane Ouattara, beyond AFCON, I hope that as the bank we have also scored a goal for Côte d'Ivoire. Thank you indeed, Mr. President.
Regardez le bleu là-bas, c'était bleu.
You can see the blue right there. It was blue. I was indeed in blue.
Excellencies, other projects pertaining to countries of the heads of state here present today. While several can be listed for each country, time does not allow. Nonetheless, the impact of the African Development Bank Group is tangibly felt all across Africa. In Tanzania, we are supporting $3.2 billion standard gauge railway connecting Tanzania to the Democratic Republic of Congo and Burundi. We supported the transport corridor that links Addis Ababa to Nairobi and Mombasa, which today has reduced the time to travel from 3 days to 1 day and expanded trade between both nations by 400%. The bank's last mile connectivity project in Kenya has helped to increase the number of Kenyans connected to national electricity grid from 2.42 million households in 2014 to 9.7 million households in 2024. And this has helped the country to increase electricity access from 36% to 76% over the same period. Also, the Lake Turkana, the wind project in Kenya, is today the largest operational wind power mill in all of Africa. As President Ruto of Kenya said when he conferred me with Kenya's highest national honor, the Chief of the Order of the Golden Heart, a great recognition for the work of the bank. He said, and I quote, "I am proud of the journey we started together 10 years ago. I can see its fruits. Kenyans benefit. Kenyan can feel its benefits." And this is the same all across Africa that I go with my staff. Today, the Kasungula Bridge connecting Zambia to Malawi and Namibia is expanding regional trade in Southern Africa. Since 1974, the collective dream of the people of Senegal and of Gambia was to have a bridge connecting both countries. That dream was realized by the African Development Bank and the African Development Fund. This impressive Senegambia bridge and the 24 kilometers road leading up to it has cut travel down from 2 days to less than 10 minutes. The Port Autonome de Lomé in Togo has expanded and been turned into a major transit port. In Comoros, we supported the construction of roads linking the islands. In Egypt, the bank supported Gabal El Asfar, a water serves 12 million residents. It is now the largest water treatment plant in Africa, and is set to serve a total of almost 18 million people by 2040. And I was just there about a week ago to see President El-Sisi on that. The bank supported the new Ouarzazate solar complex in Morocco, which is the world's largest concentrated solar power plant at the time of its completion. We launched the Lagos to Abidjan highway corridor for which the African Development Bank is supporting the feasibility studies, and we have mobilized $15 billion in investment interest towards this. Mais je dois vous dire quelque chose de très important.
Let me say something that is so important. His Excellency President Alassane Ouattara told me, Adesina, if you do not start the works for this corridor, please stay in Abuja. And I saw President Buhari, who was my president, and he told me, if you do not do that road, stay in Abidjan. So you know I'm a nomad.
I want to thank the Excellencies and all the President to us, actually. In Nigeria, we are implementing the development of special agro-industrial processing zones in 8 states and the Federal Capital Territory. We have mobilized $2.9 billion to support the establishment of these zones in 28 more states of Nigeria. Your Excellencies, we stood by countries when it mattered the most. The countries that were under sanctions to clear their debt arrears to the bank, including Somalia and Sudan, and all of my shareholders are here, and they have been exemplary in understanding and supporting us through that. And today, thanks to their support and the support from the African Development Fund, Somalia is showing tremendous recovery and resilience. Excellencies, thanks to the African Development Fund and the bank's Technology for African Agricultural Transformation, which we call TAT, Sudan, even in the midst of the conflict, is showing remarkable progress towards achieving self-sufficiency in wheat. With our support, it achieves 50% self-sufficiency in wheat in 2023 and 85% by 2024. We are also standing with Zimbabwe to clear its arrears to the bank and other creditors. As champion of the debt arrears clearance process, working with His Excellency former President Chisano, who is here with us, we have supported Zimbabwe and they are making significant progress. I am pleased that the International Monetary Fund's Staff Monitor Program will soon be concluded. And yesterday we were there. It was such an emotive time to see how far we have come. There's hope ahead. The past 10 years were filled with never before seen multiple and simultaneous crises. The COVID-19 to geopolitical tensions emanating from the Russian war in Ukraine, which in turn triggered a global food crisis. At the same time, a global debt crisis and devastating climate change posed untold hardships and challenges. In the midst of this polycrisis, your bank, the African Development Bank Group, strongly supported by its shareholders, stood strong and innovatively supported Africa as it navigated each crisis. Africa survived. Africa was resilient. Africa grew out of them all, and Africa is still standing and standing tall. Thanks for your support. We stood up for Africa when it mattered the most, the COVID-19 crisis. Africa, the continent with the least room to maneuver, was effectively left alone in the midst of the most challenging global crisis it had ever faced in decades. No vaccines, no medicines, no oxygen, no masks, no gloves. As developed countries got second and third COVID-19 booster shots, vaccines, Africa was scrambling for just one shot for its population. With the support of our shareholders, the African Development Bank swung into bold action and launched a $3 billion social bond, the largest ever in world history at that time. To support Africa, we set up a crisis response facility for up to $10 billion for counter-cyclical support for our countries. Walking away from home, my exemplary staff and board of directors, we work hard and we delivered more for Africa even in the midst of all of that. Today, the African Development Bank Group, Your Excellencies, is implementing a $3 billion program for quality health infrastructure. A $3 billion program again for the development of local pharmaceutical manufacturing capacity in Africa. We created new institutions. such as the African Pharmaceutical Technology Foundation, to enable Africa to gain access to intellectual property rights and to protected technologies and processes for manufacturing vaccines and medicines. We strongly supported African agriculture and in the process increased Africa's capacity to feed itself. Your Excellencies, in 10 years, our work allowed 104 million Africans to achieve food security and provided 13 million farmers with access to improved agricultural technologies. I see the impact of our work in supporting Africa to avoid a looming food crisis predicted when the war of Russia in Ukraine broke out. The news headlines were awash with predictions of a food crisis in Africa as the continent stood to lose 30 million tons of food, wheat, maize, and oilseeds imported from Russia and Ukraine. The African Development Bank Group swung into immediate action with a $1.5 billion emergency food production facility. Our Feed Africa plan worked. In just 2 years, Your Excellencies, our work had allowed 14 million farmers across 30 countries to have access to improved seeds and fertilizers. They produced 44 million metric tons of food. That is 14 million metric tons of food than what we were losing from Russia and Ukraine. That's 116% above the target that we set. And the total value of the food, $17.3 billion US. Thanks to the bank's support, Ethiopia increased its agricultural areas, producing heat-tolerant wheat varieties, which grew from 5,000 hectares when we started there in 2018 to over 650,000 hectares by 2023. Today, Ethiopia is self-sufficient in wheat, and in less than 4 years, Ethiopia has become a net exporter of wheat. The landmark Feed Africa Summit, which was held in Dakar, then under President Macky Sall, brought together over 30 heads of state and government who signed the Food and Agricultural Delivery Compacts to accelerate food production and food sovereignty in their countries, which was approved unanimously then by the African Union. We mobilized $72 billion globally for Africa's food security, working with our partners. The inspiration of the Feed Africa Summit informed our next bold action to achieve universal access to electricity in Africa. To fast-track access to electricity, the African Development Bank and the World Bank, myself and the president of the World Bank, AfDBAM2025, we jointly launched what's called the Mission 300 in Dar es Salaam to connect 300 million people in Africa to electricity by 2030. At the Africa Energy Summit in January of this year, we organized, hosted, and co-chaired, along with Our Excellency, President Samia Suluhu Hassan, a historic gathering of over 48 African countries, where leaders unanimously endorsed the Dakar-Dar es Salaam Declaration on Energy Access with the full support of the African Union. Your Excellencies, the declaration marks an unprecedented continental commitment to accelerate energy access through coordinated national actions, regional interconnections, and enhanced investment in renewables and grid expansion. I'm pleased to say, Your Excellencies, that we mobilized $55 billion in support of these national energy compacts.